So the meaning for Om Mani Padme Om, which is originally a Tibetan Buddhist mantra, the meaning essentially is this. It is praise to the jewel in the lotus flower. And the meaning for the mantra is very, very deep, very expansive. And the Dalai Lama actually says this is one of the most powerful mantras that humans have. And it's very simple, but very deep. And so I'll explain a little more what those words point to, because even the words, the meanings themselves become deeper and deeper as one chants it more and more. The understanding of it becomes more expansive. And so you can imagine that a lotus flower, in order to blossom, a seed must first be planted, and a lotus seed is always planted in mud. And so you have this little ball, this hard seed that's more dense than water, and when it falls from an old lotus, it falls through the water, so it's falling from the light of the sky and the subtle air, and then it's falling into deeper water, a more solid substance, feeling some pressure, and as it falls through the water, it's receiving less and less light, and it seems to be venturing further into the darkness, and then it lands on the surface of the mud at the bottom of the pond, and then more debris falls over it. The dying lotuses, if they're cut, they may sink to the bottom and cover over the seed, and then the old lotuses become mud. They start to decompose, and that little seed, which was once up in the light, is now pressed deeper and deeper into this nasty, dirty, sticky, heavy mud. And then it begins to grow and push out against that darkness. A little shoot appears. It pushes its way out of the mud. It gets a little bit of light. It travels up through the water, getting closer to light. It emerges out of the water and it's back into the air, and then a flower blooms, held by green, encased in pink or yellow or blue. And then inside you have the jewel of the lotus, and there's no actual physical jewel that exists, but there's this space of purity and space of beauty. The eye is drawn in by the flower to the emptiness that exists in between, the space in between the flower that makes it so beautiful, how it opens around this space, kind of like when you sing a song and you pause for a moment in the words, a space opens between the words that's also beautiful, and a song couldn't exist without this space. Other things to consider too, and things that I find interesting. You can imagine that at any time in your existence, somewhere on the planet, some monk or some nun or some layperson is chanting. I also want to say in some deva maybe, but if that's not your belief or if you don't subscribe to that, then you can forget it. But at some moment on the planet, somebody's chanting this mantra. So whenever you are chanting this idea of blossoming, you're not alone, just like a lotus flower is not alone in the pond in which it blossoms. Every flower drops many seeds, and from those seeds arise more flowers, which drop more seeds. The darkness and the seed can be seen as a meditation practice, the beginnings of it. So often we're resisting our own darkness. We're running away from our own pressures, our worldly or life pressures, which often are mostly mental pressures, thoughts we have of the past, worries we have of the future. So initially, when someone starts a meditation practice or a chanting practice, steadying the mind on an object of meditation, like a mantra or the breath, you're forced to face yourself and face your darkness. So you're planting the seed of awareness in the thickest, dirtiest part of your own memory, your own story, the stickiest, dirtiest part of your feeling, places in the body where it's really heavy and you don't want to even go there, or you feel a lot of tension or sorrow or tension in the chest. And initially, when meditation practice begins, it's very uncomfortable. There seems to be no light. It seems only to be pulling your attention to how horrible things are and how bad you are, and so you're such a bad person and you're not good enough and you don't have what you need and people don't love you or respect you and you didn't receive the love you needed. It seems very dire. But if you keep practicing, you start to push back against, it seems, this darkness, or you start to expand your inner core of being, of understanding. And you still don't know which direction to go, but naturally, even though there's no light to follow, nature in the seed knows which way to travel and starts traveling up toward the light very steadily, very tender. It's very delicate. If anyone were to step on the mud, it would kill the seed, so it's very delicate in that stage. But slowly it grows up, and then it finally breaks through the mud, and it comes out of its own misery, comes out of the dirtiness, and it comes into cooling waters, but now it's drowning, now it's underwater. And the light is still very dim, but it keeps growing and keeps growing, and that's the practice, someone continuing to observe the breathing, or continuing to chant the mantra. And naturally, nature follows its course, and up and up and up, the lotus stalk and the bud move, and eventually they break through the water, and now they receive the full light. At the bottom of the pond, there's very little light. Close to the top, more light. And then breaking through the surface of the water, the light's no longer distorted, and it's perceived very purely. And then the flower knows to open up to it, to reflect the light. And what we see is very much a sunlight, a very bright color. We can't even look directly into it. And what the flowers mirror back is something that seems to be equally as pure and precious and rare. Even more rare because flowers never last very long. There's only, it seems, a moment where they're at their pristine purity. And so as we continue to practice, we start to rise above the water. And at that moment, spiritual teachers start to be seen. Other people see the tender green bud coming up out of the water, and even seeing that is beautiful, because although it hasn't blossomed yet, there's an inner awareness that it's so tender that soon it will blossom. And so we continue our practice, and then finally it blossoms at the top. It's very beautiful. And within this lotus, there is a space in between, a really pure space, and then from it more seeds are made. And the teaching, the beauty spreads out.